Welcome back to the 2017 Dallas Regional Championships. My name is still Gabby Snyder.
And I'm still Adam Dorricott. I've done it for the whole duration of the weekend.
I'm really surprised you haven't switched it up yet.
No, we did that one in Florida. It's an old joke. It doesn't check out anymore.
But it's a new year.
I understand that.
Anyways, we are here with a top 4 match for you here in Dallas in the Masters division. We have Nick Navarre versus Aaron Nowak, and these trainers are ready to battle. It must be very exciting for them. They are just one win away from being a finalist here in Dallas. They're one win away from getting that increase in championship points and prize money that we keep talking about. But they've also sort of have that nice security blanket of getting to the top 4, becoming a semi-finalist here, and that's always a nice little pressure off your back.
Yeah, it's definitely nothing to be sniffed at being a semi-finalist, but I'm sure both of these players really want to push through and make the finals and probably take it home. You know, when you get to this point in the tournament, you can see the finish line. It's devastating if you miss out, but I have faith in both of these players to bring on a really good game in this top 4. We haven't seen Andrew on stream yet, so we have to look at his team a little bit more. We did see Nick earlier manage to traverse around that EV team, so definitely going to be a different matchup for him here. Something I'd like to see, there definitely other Pokemon on his team I'd like to see. We saw a lot of the Mandibuzz, and I'm wondering if it's going to be quite as useful in this matchup.
We'll have to see what Pokemon Andrew decides to bring with him and whether or not Mandibuzz stands a chance. We are in team preview, and we do see that Andrew is running Porygon 2, Mudsdale, Tapu Koko, Araquanid, Salamence, and Kartana versus Nick's team of Tapu Fini, Mandibuzz, Kartana, Arcanine, Mudsdale, and Garchomp.
So a Mudsdale on both teams. We didn't see it on stream earlier. We've not actually seen it on stream all weekend. And it's something that people were very excited about at the beginning of the format. It's got that really great stamina ability, so it can really take up hits and become even bulkier as it takes those hits. Be interesting to see if either of them bring it. Interesting to see it on Nick's team. Araquanid is going to be putting a lot of pressure down on it, so maybe not from him, but I think Andrew may have the opening to bring it. I like these teams. They're both very, very different. We've seen Nick's Mandibuzz doing a lot of work, and that is definitely something to focus on. Obviously a Tapu Koko on Andrew's side of the field that can be a pretty good answer to it, but outside of that, if the Tapu Koko is taken care of, Mandibuzz could absolutely go to town as we saw it in the earlier rounds.
Yeah, so on paper it looks like we have a Trick Room-ish team versus a Tailwind-ish team. You know, we do see some fast Pokemon on Andrew's team, that Tapu Koko, that Salamence, that Kartana, but the Araquanid, Porygon 2, and Mudsdale is actually a very solid Trick Room core for him. And if he saw Nick's match earlier, maybe got some information from what happened in day 1 of this tournament, knowing that Mandibuzz has Tailwind, we could see him elect to bring something like that into this game 1, possibly hoping to have the speed control for the duration of this match. We'll have to see what these trainers decided to bring.
Yeah, well, the Tailwind's not been so popular this year. Trick Room being a very popular, you can't set it up with the Trick Room there. Doesn't look like a very Trick Room-esque lead, though, from Andrew, leading with the faster Pokemon on his team, and Nick going for a lead I think he's quite comfortable with. Very offensive from both players. Not so much concerned about their speed control, maybe saving that for later in the game.
We see the Salamence and the Tapu Koko show up on Andrew's side of the field. Nick sending out his Kartana and his Arcanine. Both the Arcanine and the Salamence carrying that Intimidate ability, lowering the attack stat of all Pokemon on the field by 1 stage. Kartana and Arcanine might be very hurt by that, but Tapu Koko, Salamence, not usually physically offensive Pokemon, probably not as worried.
No, I think the lead really stacks up here for Andrew. He does get the Intimidate down. That's really helpful. Getting that Intimidate to be effective is important in these matches, and it gets you off to an early start. It forces decisions from Nick. Does he want to try and battle through the attack drop and get some damage down that way, or does he start to switch around? If he starts to switch around, does Andrew pick up on that and start to punish those switches? We know Salamence. We've seen a lot of different Salamence, but they often carry that Dragonian Z. If you can catch something on the switch with a big devastating Drake, that would be interesting to see. It hopefully won't be in that Tapu Fini slot, though.
Kartana switching out, sending the Tapu Fini in its place, removing the electric terrain, subbing in the misty terrain in its place. Salamence switches out as well. Andrew sending it in his Kartana. So could be at risk from that Arcanine depending on what move Nick decided to use. Thunderbolt into the Arcanine, revealing Tapu Koko's Life Orb, and Arcanine using Snarl. Unfortunately, the Tapu Koko dodging that attack, but it still deals a nice chunk of damage to that Kartana.
The Kartana actually showing its kind of weakness there, that the special defense really isn't high at all in Kartana's situation. So that's Snarl doing way more damage. The attack drop not so important in the special attack department. They are using physical attacks. That's good damage. A big loss not to get the Snarl on the Tapu Koko, but I think the change of terrain is really going to help Nick. It wasn't in the right slot. If he had predicted the Tapu Fini coming in, that Thunderbolt would have been doing big damage. Not as much damage as if the electric terrain came up. So a bold prediction from Nick. We're going to have to see if it pays off.
All right, so that Arcanine also, you know, it could target down that Kartana. I think we might see it use something like Flamethrower or Burn Up this turn. I don't think we're going to see it use something like a Will-O-Wisp quite yet. Instead, it's going to switch out, and there is that Mandibuzz. A very interesting switch by Nick. We did just see Tapu Fini target that slot with a Thunderbolt, but we saw Mandibuzz's item activate. It was that Misty Seed.
Yeah, that Misty Seed boosting defenses, something it's kind of hard to get together. We do see a Discharge, though, doing really negligible damage to that Mandibuzz, just showing off its bulk there.
We see a Sacred Sword from that Kartana target the Mandibuzz as well, and again, showing off its bulk. You know, part of that probably was thanks to the boost in defenses from that Misty Seed. However, we know that the Mandibuzz carries Roost. We know that it has Tailwind. It's such a bulky Pokemon. I think having it out on the field is really great for Nick right now, but he still has that Tapu Koko to worry about.
Yeah, the pressure is really on Andrew to remove that Mandibuzz before it sets up the Roost. That was something that won him a game in the earlier round, but if you leave this Kartana unchecked, then it's going to be doing a whole lot of damage in return. We are going to see the Kartana leave the field, though, so he's relying on the Tapu Koko this turn to do all the damage it needs.
Intimidate from that Salamence taking effect on both the Kartana and the Mandibuzz, not affecting the Mandibuzz as much because it is attacking with Foul Play, but Thunderbolt into the Mandibuzz, it is enough for that knockout. Unfortunately, it just wasn't bulky enough to live all three of the attacks it took within the past turn. Sacred Sword from that Kartana targeting the Salamence, and thanks to the Intimidate and thanks to Salamance's typing, it doesn't deal any damage.
No, very good turn there for Andrew. Doesn't go for the Discharge again, obviously with the switching coming in. And we do see that Mandibuzz get removed from the field, so he established it as a threat and he got rid of it. He does now take the Pokemon advantage. That Tapu Fini coming in is obviously already on its terrain, but Tapu Koko is still definitely a threat here. We've seen Kartana with very low special defense, could be taking a lot of damage from the Tapu Koko. Even Salamence, which sometimes carry Flamethrower, is going to be putting a bunch of pressure down on the Kartana. And Kartana's only real answer, or only thing it can do here, is of course going to be maybe a smart strike into that Tapu Koko. But apart from that, I think Andrew's pair on the field have really well matched up against Nick's pair on the field. So smart positioning of his board, knowing what's available to come in, just give him a really good upper hand in this game, I think. So Nick, a little bit behind, but we've seen that from him before. There's definitely a way out for him with these Pokemon.
It's all going to come down to which moves these trainers pick for this turn. We do see the Thunderbolt from that Tapu Koko target the Tapu Fini. It's not enough to knock it out. Tapu Koko taking a little bit of Life Orb damage. Again, Kartana not using Smart Strike, instead using Leaf Blade and just barely missing the knockout on Tapu Koko. Flamethrower from that Salamence into the Kartana for the knockout. And Tapu Fini, the last Pokemon on the field, not attacking this turn, instead going for a Calm Mind.
Yeah, very brave of it to go for the Calm Mind. Obviously confident in its ability to be sticking around at the end of the turn. We do see the Tapu Koko, though, is still in a good position here. With the Calm Mind and the recovery from the leftovers, it's going to be close to see if another Thunderbolt is able to take the knockout here. But getting the knockout on that Kartana, nice and easy for the Salamence. Kartana may be predicting a switch in or just fishing for that critical hit, of course, with the Leaf Blade. Doesn't get the knockout on Tapu Koko. It is going to be in a good position to put pressure on. There is a nice new threat from Nick in the Snarl. If he can maybe buy some time for Tapu Fini to protect, get some leftovers recovery, maybe even get the knockout with the Snarl, looking at how low Tapu Koko is now, then he's going to be in a good position to start a comeback. With the damage already down on Nick's side, there's not much answer to the Salamence here, I don't think, from Nick. I think Salamence may be able to push through the back end of this game.
Unfortunately, we're not going to see Salamence move quite yet. It uses Protect this turn. Tapu Fini protecting as well. Nick, I think, afraid of the threat of a knockout from that Tapu Koko, who does target that Tapu Fini. Arcanine with the Flamethrower does target that Tapu Koko, and it should be enough for a knockout, which means Tapu Fini has a little bit more of an opportunity now to start dealing damage on Andrew's side of the field, provided that Andrew doesn't bring anything that also shuts down Tapu Fini in the back.
That's really what he needed to do. He bought himself a little bit of time. He capitalized on the fact he put damage down on the Tapu Koko earlier, and if Andrew doesn't have an answer to the Tapu Fini, it looks like like he does in this Kartana with the Leaf Blade, but it's going to be tough for him. It is something he needs to get back in the game, but seeing that Kartana just puts the pressure right back on Tapu Fini. Of course, it's not completely safe. Arcanine is there. Arcanine, though, definitely weakened. I think Salamence might have an answer to it.
Yeah, Tapu Fini going for the second protect. Unfortunately, it fails, which means that Leaf Blade should knock it out. Nick needed that second protect to happen in order to have a chance at winning this game. Kartana using its Beast Boost ability to boost its attack one stage after that that Leaf Blade, and we see a Z move on the Salamence, which is a very interesting piece of information to reveal right now in Game 1.
I think Andrew could have played it safe and not revealed it, but he does show it is the Dragonium Z. It is going to be the Devastating Drake. It is, of course, going to be targeting down that Arcanine, the only thing left on the field. Just wants to make sure it gets knocked out. So it's going to take that easy knockout, and Andrew Nowak is going to win this first game of this best of 3. The 1-0 lead, very good, and it looked like a very commanding win from him as well. So I think change is definitely needed from Nick in both the selection and the play while they're on the field.
Yeah, I mean, we only saw one game from Nick on stream this weekend, and it was a very interesting game, maybe not the matchup you'd usually see, but it almost looks like his team sort of uses that Mandibuzz as sort of the center of his team. It can set up speed control, it can roost, it can just be bulky and deal consistent damage thanks to that foul play attack. The fact that Andrew was able to knock it out in 3 hits before it could even roost to get that health back or attack, I think was just a great play by Andrew, sort of identifying Nick's Achilles heel, if you will, and sort of forcing Nick to readjust and play around his strategy, and unfortunately he wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, the difference in Tapu Pokemon, really the deciding factor there in my opinion. We do see the Tapu Koko from Andrew. A lot of people are moving away from it recently, but it puts so much pressure on the things on Nick's team. Of course, the Mandibuzz getting caught a couple times by those Thunderbolts and getting knocked out. The Tapu Fini, of course, under pressure from it. And I just think there wasn't too many answers to it. He didn't bring either Mudsdale or Garchomp, which ground type would definitely help against that Tapu Koko. But I think that might be the change that Nick decides to make going into Game 2.
Yeah, we didn't see any form of speed control from either of these trainers as well, so I have a feeling we'll probably most likely see that Garchomp, unless Andrew tries to mix it up and go for that Trick Room mode, just hoping to catch Nick off guard. It's definitely a lot to think about, and with so much on the line, you really need to take your time and make sure you're making the best decision possible.
Well, we saw the Garchomp do a lot of work for him in his previous round against Giovanni Costa. Now, the big concern with this Garchomp is it is carrying the Choice Scarf, so seeing that Porygon 2 and that slower side of Andrew's team definitely puts a little bit of a doubt in his mind. You know, it casts that seed of doubt. He's not sure if he brings Garchomp. If he brings it in, locks it in with the Choice Scarf, obviously, and somehow the Trick Room goes up, but definitely harder for him to get set up, it's going to be a problem. That Garchomp going last, more liable to get knocked out before it's able to do damage. Of course, the Mandibuzz available to stop that Trick Room with the Taunt. Porygon 2s forced to carry that Eviolite to make themselves useful, are able to get taunted, but the Mandibuzz been answered very well, I think, by Andrew here. What the changes we get from this match, I think, are going to decide if we get Game 2 or Game 3, of course. And I think Nick has a little bit of work to do. Yeah,
Nick indeed has a little bit of work to do. Let's see how he's going to start things off, leading with the Mudsdale and the Arcanine. So potentially no Garchomp in this match. Instead, we finally see a Mudsdale take the field. And from Andrew's side, we see the Araquanid and that Tapu Koko.
Very smart change up by Nick there. The ground type definitely needed, but another adaptation from Andrew. He now leads with the Araquanid. Predicting the ground type change from Nick, that Araquanid's going to be putting a lot of pressure on the Mudsdale. Of course, it's going to be hard to knock it out. It is exceptionally bulky horse, but if you get the stamina boost up, you can start then coming back into the game. So I think a lot of pressure riding on this Mudsdale. It does have access to some very interesting moves, and the few Mudsdales I've seen definitely have some answers to Araquanid hidden in the pocket. If he can weather the storm and retaliate with one of those answers, I think he's going to be in great shape. The only thing that really puts the pressure on as well, the Arcanine dropping the Intimidate, making that Araquanid a little more manageable as well. So I think a great lead from Nick. He just has to execute it properly, because we saw Andrew just capitalize on a couple of curious plays, I think, from Nick.
Yeah, definitely. Nick really needs to take his time here, make sure the moves that he's selecting are the best ones. We see Andrew taking a lot of time here. So interesting to see what he thought up. We do see that Arcanine switch out, the Kartana come out on the field, in its place, going to be able to deal a ton of damage to both the Tapu Koko and the Araquanid Tapu Koko, protecting this turn, not going to target anything with a Thunderbolt. The liquidation from Araquanid moving before the Mudsdale, but Mudsdale holds on, taking the defense drop, which will unfortunately negate the stamina boost from that Mudsdale. But wait, it looks like we're getting a Z move.
And it's not the Z move you might expect. It's going to be the rock type Z move on this Mudsdale. It's going to be the big Continental Crush, so weathering the storm of the liquidation with the help of the Intimidate from Arcanine. Very smart lead, and now Mudsdale able to throw a Continental Crush. It's going to be squishing that Spider, just what we like to do in our own homes, particularly in Florida where I'm from. That Araquanid not able to take that at all, really easily retaliated, and one of the big threats to Nick's team removed from the field. So the only thing that can deal large, consistent damage to the Mudsdale removed, I think, and a really good tech choice on the Mudsdale there.
And a great lead from Nick. He knew that if the Araquanid were to show up in the front of Andrew's party, he needed that Intimidate drop on it to survive that liquidation and be able to retaliate with his Z move. So just very well played, thinking a few steps ahead, even at team preview. Now it's just up to see whether or not he's able to continue thinking ahead with that Mudsdale and Kartana on his side of the field.
It's going to be an interesting play. Obviously that Mudsdale likely not going to be able to stick around too much longer. The stamina doing a lot of help. I think it worked really, really well there. Being able to weather that storm is good, but that tech choice, I'm still impressed by it. Getting rid of one of the biggest threats from Andrew's team. He's now down a Pokemon. He's going to be fighting back a little bit from that disadvantage. So I think a fantastic change from Nick here. And the Pokemon he has on the field definitely able to do something. The Intimidate is going to be a bit of a bother, and he's going to get that Kartana out so it's not affected by it.
Kartana switching out, Tapu Fini taking the field in its place, removing the electric terrain and setting up that misty terrain once again. Mudsdale switching out as well, so Nick taking this opportunity to play very defensively and get both of his Pokemon out and instead intimidate that Tapu Koko and Salamence combination, which I don't think will be much help based off of what we've seen, but you never know. Arcanine could have been switched in just to be able to take some of these attacks. We see a huge Thunderbolt from that Tapu Koko into the Tapu Fini, and we see Salamence follow up with a Flamethrower into the Arcanine. So unfortunately for Tapu Fini, it looks like that Thunderbolt is going to be a two-hit knockout without the help of that Calm Mind.
No, a very defensive switch there by Nick. Of course, nullifying the damage from the Salamence is really good, but that Tapu Fini being caught by a Thunderbolt on the way in is not what he wants at all. We do see the pressure the Tapu Koko puts down. Arcanine can retaliate with a Snarl, and then it will be able to limit the damage, but I think even if it gets a Snarl down on both these Pokemon, which would be fantastic, he's still got to buy a couple turns for Tapu Fini to heal up with the leftovers, and this is the way to do it.
This is the first turn with that Protect, Tapu Fini making sure it won't take any damage, but Andrew making a read, Thunderbolting the Arcanine instead, bringing it down to half health, losing some of its health, and also the Z move also most likely targeting that Arcanine.
It's going to be a very good prediction this turn from Andrew. Knowing Tapu Fini needs to buy some time, he calls that Protect, throws the Thunderbolt in towards that Arcanine, getting down a good amount of damage, and this follow-up from Devastating Drake means Arcanine is going to be removed from the field. No possibility of Snarl as a follow-up, so Arcanine just not being able to pull enough of its weight.
Oh!
And it does manage to cling on. I cannot believe it.
Holding on with 7 HP, activating its Mango Berry, but Tapu Koko dodging the Snarl. Unfortunately for Nick, he was so close to weakening that Tapu Koko. He still gets the Snarl onto the Salamence, which will help, knowing that he has the Kartana in the back, but that Tapu Fini still is in a very dangerous position right now.
That is incredible training, I think, on the part of the Arcanine. Being trained exceptionally bulky in the special defense means it can hold on through that Devastating Drake. I don't even think Nick was expecting it to deal with that. It looked like a clean knockout, but the damage from Tapu Koko obviously not bringing it into the right range. Very, very good turn for Nick. Does miss out, unfortunately, on the Snarl on Tapu Koko, so he needs to keep buying turns for Tapu Fini.
We see Salamence switch out. In its place, the Kartana takes the field. We're most likely going to see Tapu Fini switch out as well, in the Mudsdale returning in its place. So if we see another Thunderbolt from that Tapu Koko into the Mudsdale, it will not do any damage at all, and Arcanine finally able to connect that Snarl with the Tapu Koko and deal a nice chunk of damage to that Kartana as well.
Yeah, that really good turn for Nick. Obviously that survival being absolutely crucial from the devastating Drake, and now he's able to capitalize off that. The Arcanine is still in the field. It's now getting snarls down on the Tapu Koko. Nick also making a perfect switch into the Mudsdale. Obviously Andrew focused on getting rid of that Tapu Fini, falls for the trap. It comes in the Mudsdale and it just takes the Thunderbolt with the immunity. So very good turn for Nick. Definitely swinging the momentum very quickly back in his favor. Of course, Kartana can take a knockout, but it's just got to be careful. It can't knock both of these out.
It really can't, and it's up to Andrew to identify who he's most afraid of right now on the field. That Mudsdale can deal massive amounts of damage, but that Arcanine still has that Snarl, probably has a Fire-type attack to help manage that Kartana. It's all going to come down to, what that last Pokemon Andrew has is, and what he thinks Nick has in the back, and how he's going to manage that. We see the Mudsdale switch out, the Kartana coming out on the field in its place. So again, a great defensive switch there by Nick. Thunderbolt into the Arcanine this time. It brings it down into the red. It's possible for Andrew's Kartana to knock it out here. We see the Sacred Sword into the Arcanine, so it does get the knockout, and unfortunately for Nick, he's unable to do any damage that turn. He lost his Intimidator, and now that Kartana on Andrew's side of the field has that nice Beast Boost.
I think an overly defensive switch from Nick, being brutally punished. Andrew seeing through it, knowing that Mudsdale was going to leave. I don't even think he knew Mudsdale was going to leave. He was just more scared of the Arcanine. So Nick making an almost unnecessary switch to Kartana. I understand he wants it on the field to answer Andrew's Kartana, but it's going to be really difficult for him. We know it's exceptionally frail in the special defense, and Kartana really has its work cut out. It needs to put pressure on both of these at once. Mudsdale on such low health is going to be able to get knocked out by these, maybe not the Tapu Koko, depending on what it's holding. We've seen Thunderbolt and Discharge, but it could be, as we see with a lot, Dazzling Gleam is going to do well. I think the pressure is really on Kartana here to swing back the momentum in Nick's favor.
Yeah, for Andrew, it's all about identifying his win conditions right now, which Pokemon he's the most afraid of, and making sure that whatever he does have with him in the back, which is that Salamence with the Intimidate, is able to deal damage and win him this game. The Intimidate, a very great defensive switch from Andrew, weakening both that Mudsdale and that Kartana. Kartana on Andrew's side of the field using Protect as well, so Andrew definitely hoping that Intimidate pays off. Leaf Blade into the Salamence, it hardly deals any damage at all, and close combat into the protecting Kartana from that Mudsdale.
Andrew making a defensive switch and not getting punished for it, different to how Nick got it. He now gets the Salamence in. That puts pressure on Nick's Kartana, and the Kartana sticking around for Andrew is going to put pressure on the Mudsdale as well, so I think a very smart switch. The Intimidate also exceptionally helpful. The Kartana not predicting it, going for a Leaf Blade that does negligible damage due to Salamence. It's fantastic typing, and I think Andrew just holds the cards. He just has to execute it correctly, or Nick has to make some fantastic plays out of nowhere.
Yeah, there is definitely a ton of pressure on both of these trainers right now to think through their turns, think about what their opponent's doing. We do see Nick start off this turn with a very defensive switch, switching out that Kartana for the Tapu Fini, once again getting that Misty Surge, that Misty Terrain out on the field. Leaf Blade from Kartana, though, targeting the Tapu Fini and knocking it out. An amazing prediction by Andrew there, bringing it down to just Nick's Kartana. And that Mudsdale getting the second Beast Boost. Salamence using its Flamethrower to target the Mudsdale. It looks like it's going to actually knock it out. So an amazing play by Andrew. Unfortunately, I don't think the Kartana on Nick's side of the field will be strong enough to win him this game.
No, Kartana doesn't have a way to knock both of these Pokemon out, so Andrew will be moving on to the finals of the Dallas Regionals. A fantastic prediction there from Andrew, knowing what the Kartana was up to, knowing it was going to leave the field, knowing, of course, that the Tapu Fini was the Pokemon remaining. He locks in the Leaf Blade, catches it on the way in, and a really good way to end the game, showing his knowledge, of course, of the game. The crowd seemed to enjoy that one, so I hope they enjoy the next top 4 as much, but really well played by Nick. He had a tough match in top 16 that he had to traverse. That wasn't going to be an easy one to get past at any point at all, and this match was really tough for him. He played it really well, but Andrew just predicted a couple of turns. A couple of switches were really punished for Nick as well, and I think that was the difference.
Yeah, and really being able to make those switches and make those reads is what separates, the finalists of these tournaments from everybody else. And it's really hard, after playing so many games for the entirety of this weekend, to keep up that high level of play. But Andrew just showing why he's earned his spot in the finals here in Dallas. Just an amazing game.
It was a fantastic game, and I think Andrew showed his pedigree there. We are going to find out who his opponent is going to be. We're going to take a couple of minutes break while we get them set up. We'll be right back with our second top 4 game.
Please stay tuned, everybody.